Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Chiara Marina. I'm the coordinator of the Venice Production Bridge. Today, we would like to welcome you to this panel, special panel that we want to dedicate to the book Adaptation Rights Market. This year is going to be our 8th edition, so I want also to give a personal thanks to all the publishers that came this year and to which we really owe the growing of this project. And then I want to thank you then our panelists, starting with Nicoletta Chinni from Cattleya.
Thanks to you for inviting us.
We want to thank you, Wolfgang Mueller.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. And we'd like to thank also Sema, that she's from one of our publishers from Penguin Random House. And
Thanks.
Then, of course, Sema. And we want to thank you, our moderator, Nick Vivarelli from Variety.
Thank you, Chiara. So, welcome everybody. I think before we get started, I'd like to just point out the fact that this component of the Venice Production Bridge, the book Adaptation Rights Market, has generated some very important, some very big titles. Just two that I'm going to mention. One is The Killer, the David Fincher film, which is here in competition this year. And the other is The Eight Mountains, which was here last year and went on to have a very glorious journey. We have a sort of case study, I think, that we're going to sort of kick things off with, which is Tottenfrau, and we're going to hear more about that from Wolfgang. I think maybe either you or Sema can start us off, and basically just, you know, the germination of this project, which is now a series on Netflix, a big series on Netflix. So I think we're going to use this as our jumping off point, and then we'll talk more about other aspects of bringing IPs to the screen. But yeah, if one of you, whoever sort of wants to go first, could give us a little bit of, could talk to us about the germination of Tottenfrau.
Thank you, Nick. And again, thank you for having us in our little project, our case study here. So the germination of Totenfrau, or Woman of the Dead, as it's called internationally, is actually a really nice story about things coming full circle. The first book of the trilogy was published in 2014. And Wolfgang optioned the series and originally wanted to take it to Netflix Germany. And the way was a bit meandering for the project. It first didn't end up there, and traveled a bit all over the world. And in the end, it turned out to be a Netflix Germany production. So this was in 2014. It came out, and I think the option agreement was 2015. I think, right? Yeah, so I joined Penguin Random House in 2019, and between the two of us, Wolfgang was actually there and present at the germination show. I think I'll just give over to you, and because it was also a friend of you who introduced you to the books, right?
Yes. The thing was, I myself was writing or publishing a novel with Random House, and my publisher one day told me about that. She knew that I'm working in a film, and she told me about this book by Bernhard Eichner, and I said, oh, it's interesting to do a kind of, and I read it, it was fantastic for film, I thought, or we thought, and we said, well, let's make a series out of it, which was not so normal at this point in development. And then, as we are a company based I'm in Berlin, and my business partner in LA, and he said, well, there's there's this American company who wants, and it was rumored that they want to do an office in Germany called Netflix. And again, this was 8 years ago only, and so we contacted Netflix, but at this time it was impossible for them to get into these kind of productions, and so we tried and were in talks with some German channels, and then something happened that this book was published and sold in I don't know how many languages.
13 languages, which is quite a lot.
Which is enormous for a German book, and especially in the English language it was translated, and this fantastic publishing house Scribner in the US took the rights, and Scribner belongs, I guess, or belonged, I don't know, to CBS, and out of nothing we got a phone call doing that in the US, and that was the first when we started. Okay, can we do that in the US for a US market, for a US audience? And long time short, we ended with a studio, and developed a pilot, which was, I think, very good. And at the end of the day, the studio decided not to bring it into series. And one of the commissioner, she changed job and went to Netflix in the US.
So this is after the pilot had been made?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. She told us, well, Netflix in Germany is now active, and why not? And that is why we came back to Netflix in Germany.
Okay. What is the basic sort of thrust of the show, the sort of concept? I just read the tagline: "A woman wants revenge and gets it."
Well, it's a female revenge thriller. She's an undertaker in an Austrian village, and out of nothing, one day her beloved husband dies by accident, or seems like an accident, and then she finds out a conspiracy, and then you have to watch it.
Okay. But it's obviously set in the present day. It's contemporary.
It's contemporary.
Okay. So Netflix Germany was just starting out, and is this one of the first originals that they commissioned?
Actually, it was not an original. They called it a license, which is a kind of which is a differentiation, I think, in Netflix, because there was Austrian TV.
Okay,
on
so
board.
I think it's interesting as a model, the fact that you had a public broadcaster collaborating with Netflix, which is something that they were prone to do at the beginning of. At the outset when they arrived in Europe. And so basically, in terms of the way the rights worked, so the rights were optioned, your company optioned the rights?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And then there was a bit of, there was a moment in which it was supposed to be done in the US, and it went back to Germany. And then basically, how long did it take? And what were some of the subsequent steps to actually get it to the screen?
Well, we had to extend the rights, which is obviously not normal that after 3 or 4 years, a rights holder, publishing house like Random House says, "Oh, go ahead," but they trusted us, and we talked to them a lot, and we had the trust of the novelist, and this is the main reason why we kept going.
Okay, and your role in all of this is very crucial, because I think, as I understand it, you were the showrunner as well, right?
I'm a co-showrunner with a German-American writer and my business partner, Benito. Yeah.
Okay, and we're talking about a German language show, right? Okay, and in terms of the writing process, how many writers, did you get a writer's room going? How did that work?
With us, we were 5 writers.
Okay.
And we started, I actually rented a room in Berlin, which were the production offices of the Queen's Gambit, the Netflix show as well. And then one day before everyone was traveling from LA and from Vienna, the lockdown came. Mm-hmm. And so we had to move into Zoom, which worked perfectly. At the end of the day, it was a kind of therapy, of course, and everyone in the morning was telling about the news of the lockdown in Vienna, in LA, and Berlin. But it worked very well.
So did you have an American writer involved as well? How did that work?
Barbara Stepanski, she's a German-American nationality, yeah.
Okay, and was the author of the book involved in this at all?
Well, we had very close contact, but he was not involved in the creative process, or intervened or made everything. No, it was not at all. It was really great, trusted relationship.
And also for us as a publisher, it was really important that the author Bernhard Eichner is, I mean, even if he's not in the writer's room, like he's like involved, kept up to date, and in this way we could also, build a trusting relationship with Barry Films, and could also talk to the author about extending the option, because as Wolfgang mentioned, it's not a given to be able to extend an option for a project. I mean, all the publishers in this room know it, so you have to talk to the author, tell him about the progress, and see if he's okay with the project. And in this case, it was really like a best practice case, how things should go when you have an adaptation project.
Okay, terrific. So then once you had the screenplays ready, how many episodes are we talking about here?
It's a 6 episodes.
6 episodes. Okay, is it a limited series?
Actually, it's not, because it was the book as a trilogy, and we just adapted the first book. Okay, so the idea is to re-up, basically. Okay. And so once you had the screenplays, how involved was Netflix in all of this? They were not. They just let us. They just got the screenplays, and then they were fine with it, as well as ORF, the Austrian channel, and it was total freedom.
Okay, on both sides, both from the broadcaster, the public broadcaster, and from Netflix. Okay, and so as we were saying before, it's interesting because having a public broadcaster and a streamer means that at the end of the day, as a producer, you can hold on to more of the back end, basically, or the rights, let's call it. The IP remains yours, right? Or at least part of the IP.
Part of the IP remains. I mean, it was, our world was, I would say, until yesterday, was a little bit like an exclusive world. So if Netflix aired something or showed something on then there was no other rights sellable in that main countries. That may change now.
Okay, so it's interesting because as I understand it, this model was possible at the beginning when Netflix first arrived. Then things went into a direction where the streamer, took everything and paid out a flat fee, and just, basically the producer was sort of like a line producer almost, didn't retain anything. And now there are many attempts to change this, obviously, and there's a more flexibility, I believe, with the business models that the streamers are adopting. So, and in terms of time, let's say, so when did this show launch on Netflix?
This January, it was launched at Netflix. It was it was shown in October of the year before on ORF in Austria. It was aired there, very successful there, and then Netflix came out in January.
Okay, so it only went out on the public broadcaster in Austria, not in Germany. Okay, and then Netflix launched it in the rest of the world. And they are providing some analytical information as to not just the viewers, which we know is difficult, but the geographic analytics of it, like what country, what territories it's playing better in.
Yeah, you got some information. I mean, not detailed information, but what I remember is that it was very well seen in Europe. Europe and Western Europe and Eastern Europe, very well in LATAM, in Latin America, and that was surprising for us in the US.
Okay. So I think we have a very nice best practice case. As we were saying, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add about it that we've left out. If not, I think we can. Okay. All right. Terrific. Now, Chiara, I mean, a general consideration to make here is that in the world in which we're living, for various reasons, IPs have become much more important. It's a very banal thing, but it's true. And there are several reasons for it. It probably has to do with less risk in one sense, and then maybe other reasons. I'd just like to hear from your prism of a prominent Italian production company that's actually owned by a British group, ITV. How important books are and how important IPs are for Cattleya, and whether you see this as something that is becoming more and more so.
Yes. As Cattleya, well, we've been into book-to-screen adaptations from the very beginning. Cattleya was founded in 1997, and at the beginning we were focused on feature films, and we did many adaptations from them at that time. Then we moved slightly to TV shows, and then definitely TV drama became our asset, we can say, and we still did many adaptations. I know. Gomorrah was an adaptation, Suburra is an adaptation, 000, Romanzo Criminale. Romanzo Criminale actually was a movie first, and then also
no, but it's from a book. It's from a book.
Yes, it's from a book, but at the beginning, the first adaptation we did was a movie.
Of course.
And also Suburra, actually. And these are shows that ended up being like our most successful somehow. So, but back at the beginning of Cattleya, we were alone. Like, no one else was doing what we did. Like, we were buying whatever we liked, not spending that much money, and we could wait. Let's see how it works, how it sells, if it's good, if it's not. We could wait. Now, everything has changed in this sector. I mean, now you have to fight for a property. You have to spend money. You have to be constantly updated about what's happening. You need to be like very fast. And many times you need to bet on a manuscript even before it is published. And sometimes you bet right, and sometimes you bet very badly. And but you have to, because if you wait, you lost the property. So, not complaining, but well, it was better before for us, but it's definitely very good for the industry right now. So I think that just this situation points out how important IPs are becoming for everyone. And as you said, there are many reasons for that. In my opinion, it has to do with, you can shorten the production process, also the development process. If you go to a streamer or to a distributor and you tell them a story that they already know, and maybe they have already their feeling about the potential of it, so it's easier for you to get them involved in the project. and maybe to have a development contract, or if you're very lucky, a green light direct for production. And this works also for talent. Talent, in my opinion, but I think it's banal, it's obvious, are key right now. So, if you have a great property, a bestseller, a huge success, and maybe a novel the directors and screenwriters and actors and actresses have read and have loved, so it's easier to have them make room in their busy agendas to work on that adaptation, because there's so much work for everyone right now, and they can pick the right project they want. And if you have a good property, then they may want to be part of it. These are two reasons. A third one, I think that they're good for co-production, because if you have a novel that's set in more than one territory and has been sold in many territories, so you have a good opportunity to get the attention of distributors, streamers, and producers from other countries. And I don't know, last but not least, I would say that, I'm sorry about this, but why not? I mean, it's only a great opportunity. Like as producers, we're always looking for content, for good content. And we're looking for it everywhere. Like now also podcasts, or a great story, good personality, I don't know. So why not IPs? So it's like everyone right now has discovered this, I guess.
Now, in terms of looking everywhere, are you scouting for books outside of Italy? And the show that we were talking about before, Petra, I think is an example. I think what's interesting also are adaptations of books that go from one country to another. So yeah, if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, it's interesting. Well, Petra was a series, light crime series from Spain, written by Alicia Jimenez Bartlett. And that series started back in the 90s. And so when we approached that property, it was, I don't know, maybe there were 10 books out of it, and, 10, 12 short stories. But what was very interesting for us is that Petra was huge in Italy, was bigger in Italy than in Spain. Alicia Jimenez Bartlett in Italy sells a lot. So we were pretty sure that we had an audience for it. So what we did, we got in touch with Alicia, and we had to convince her that we were the right producers to translate Petra into the screen, and also to make her Italian. So sometimes this can be a problem. So many authors doesn't want their creatures to be translated too much. But in that case, what we have to do is to convince her that we love that character, and we knew her, and that we would respect her. And even if Petra would become Italian and played by Paola Cortellesi in an incredible performance, Petra would be Petra, would stay Petra. So she said yes. We paid what we had to, and we started production, and then we attached talent with that property because Paola Cortellesi knew those books and was excited of performing Petra. And then we could sell quite easy to Sky, and I think.
And the show has traveled outside of Italy as well.
In Europe, it has been sold well in Germany, and I know that it's going well in Germany, but I don't know if there are many other territories, actually.
Okay. Now, in terms of IPs, what are the genres? I mean, are there some types of genres in terms of IPs that are standout right now that generate more interest and excitement on the market? This is a question for all three of you, basically. Whoever wants to take it first.
Well, yes, because every producer is different, so I don't know. Well, in Cattleya's case, we are very much into genre and crime, as you said before, and that's huge for us. It stays that way. But we also like comedy, which is not that easy to find in literature. So, but also it works well romance right now, and not YA. Well, it's yeah, it can work, but it's not that big as it was like a few years ago. And I see like an uprising interest for melodrama, actually, and spicy stories. I don't know what you think about it.
Wolfgang.
Yes, as we are a small company and remain a small company, I would say everything which I'm attracted to and see that I'm within the next 5 years on it. And so I would say it is definitely genre. It must have a commercial anchor in a way, and maybe kind of elevated genre.
Elevated genre. Okay. Sema, what is more in demand at the moment, from your perspective?
So speaking for the German-speaking territories, because I mostly work with German-speaking production companies, it's crime and thriller. So especially Germany is like thriller central almost. Also comedy and everything that makes a certain escape for the viewer, for the reader possible. So escapism is a huge thing. And then also romance, as Nicoletta mentioned, again, German-speaking countries. And what I'm observing right now is that the genres young and new adult, for us as publishers, are like really, like production companies are still asking for them. So that's really interesting, and I don't know if you guys are following Book Talk, if it's a thing in your territories, but in Germany it's huge right now, and so also because of that, like genres like young and new adult are like flourishing, especially in the book market, and also for the production companies, they do stay relevant from my point of view.
Okay. Now, in terms of, I guess maybe we can call it formats, I'm curious about. I believe there is now a growing tendency to make films, feature films, vis-a-vis TV series. Like the adaptations right now are veering possibly more towards feature films than TV series. I'd like to hear all three of you, if this is correct, what your take is and why this is happening.
I would say yes. I think there was a boom for TV series for now over 10, 15 years almost, I would guess, if you see the beginnings in the US. And I think it's normal that we come back to other formats. And I'm pretty happy that feature now is coming back. I'm pretty happy that film is coming back also for the streamers. It's getting more and more important. I mean, you mentioned The Killer, which is fantastic that it is here, that it is in the cinemas, that it is at Netflix later on. So these are, I think also the streamers have, in general, more and more problems to see that there's too many series on it. So it's I think it changed a little bit the business models.
Okay. Nicoletta.
Yes, I share the same enthusiasm about this, like, vivid interest in movies. And why is that? Well, many reasons. In my opinion, it has to do with audiences also, because I think they're tired. I mean, if you have to spend your time on something, maybe you want to be like sure that you're spending your time like in something good, and you can never know. So sometimes it's easier to say, I'm gonna watch a movie tonight and not starting a new first episode of something. And the offer is so huge right now. We have so many shows that you can never, like, you don't even know what's going on, like what's on Netflix, what's on Amazon, Apple. Even myself, sometimes I say, oh my God, is that show out? And I don't know anything about that. So I think that the audience want to be like reassured that they're not wasting their time. And also the streamers need to, I think that this is something that really has changed in the market. Like at the beginning when they came into the market, they all were like, we want to go big, we want to be like the best in the class, and so spending money and very big, huge and expensive project. But now I feel like all of the streamers need to like, have a revenue, okay? And so sometimes a movie is less expensive, and so you can bet on that with less risk, as you said. And maybe you wanna invest on TV shows and TV drama when you're pretty sure they're gonna go very well.
Sure, sure. I mean, from your perspective, Sema, first of all, I would imagine that optioning a book for a movie vis-a-vis a TV series would cost the producer a bit less money. I'm not sure if it works that way.
Depends on the IP.
Okay. But also, aside from that, A, is it true? Are you getting more requests for films? And B, do you consider that to be a good thing or not? Or are you neutral to that?
So the conversation about the resurgence of feature films is something I'm talking about to producers like more and more often. And shortly before I came to Venice, I closed an option deal for cinema for a film of a children's book. So yes, there are options for features, but the majority of deals I'm still making is for TV shows.
Right.
Yeah. So and also for the majority of our authors, a series sounds much more appealing because the story is not condensed, there is nothing shortened. To the contrary, it's like much more thoroughly told. Sometimes there are also new aspects that the production companies are adding. So it's if a production company approaches me and says, okay, we love this book, we love to turn it into a 90 to 120-minute feature, they have to be like way more detailed and thorough in their justification to the author why it's a feature, not a series, because as I said, most of the authors now want a Netflix show or an Apple TV show. So yeah, that's also the author side.
Okay. And in this respect, I think we were talking about this before, that as I understand it, the streamers are scouting themselves for IPs, but most of the transactions are taking place through producers, if I'm not mistaken.
So the experience I'm making with streaming platforms is that they're mostly working with book scouts now, because it's almost impossible as a platform or also as a production company to oversee the whole book market, even if it's just the German-speaking one. So they work with people who know the book industry, who have experience in the film industry, and have an eye for the best IP and approach the publishers directly. So that's something that, thinking about streaming platforms, we're working with all of them now have book scouts. Production companies, I think, are going into this direction as well, because as Nicoletta mentioned, there is so much IP on the market, and you have to be really, really quick now as a production company, because this year and last year, I had several auctions, several bidding wars for the same IP, and it's, of course, the financial offer, but also the creative offer, and they do have to be quick. So it definitely makes sense to work with, an expert, with a scout, in order to find the best IP. And also for me, it's easier to have one person I'm always talking to, and not with a big production company, 11 people who I'm always sending out stuff to, so yeah.
But are there instances that you have experienced where the streamer actually purchases the IP directly from you?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think there are several cases that a streamer purchased the work of writers. I know we were once in an idea about an adaptation of a Harlan Coben book, and that was all bought by Netflix, and there's other even bigger IPs, I think, which were bought by streamers.
Okay,
So it's an additional competitor.
okay, so in a way, it cuts you out of the process, of course. Sorry, did you want to say?
Yeah, I would like to add to that. Harlan Coben is a good example because at Penguin Random House Germany, we are representing the film rights and the media rights for German language originals. And mostly with streaming platforms, even if they have scouts, or they do have scouts for their distinct territories, they still want like the biggest IP, and more often than not, that's an American IP or an English IP.
Okay.
And that's something we do not have the rights to. So even the book scout, comes to me with this book, and I'm like, okay, I'll forward you to the US agency. So it's not, I don't make the deal, but the US again. So it's, yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of that, speaking of IPs and, the US vis-a-vis Europe, as we know, there's a writer's strike going on in the US, there's an actor's strike going on in the US, and there is a prospect, although we all hope that these strikes will end soon, that a gap can be formed. And so there is a prospect that actually the gap can be an opportunity maybe for European IPs to travel more. Nicoletta, do you have any thoughts about that? Do you see that as an opportunity? Is this a time when maybe a European IP could seize this opportunity? Are the production companies starting to think in that sense?
That's a tough question because actually we don't hold rights, so maybe like an Italian publisher could answer that question better than me. From a production perspective, I don't really know. Actually.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, okay. I mean, this is just, it's probably a bit premature, and the strike may not last that long.
I mean, what I think that may have changed the opportunity of an Italian, for example, IP to travel, and is the editorial success that many Italian novels have had in these last years abroad. For example, L'Amica Geniale. So when a territory says, oh my God, this book is brilliant, and I feel like they may be interested in other books like that. So, of course, if an Italian novel has been published in the US, so that property gets, well, more interesting, also for eventually for a sell, as an adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, My Brilliant Friend is a perfect example of that, and I think it's a book that was very big before it got turned into a TV series, but of course there's a snowball effect, and then the TV series makes the book even bigger. And I think, and to a certain extent, I think that happened with Gomorra. I mean, Gomorra was a movie before it was a TV series, and then the book has certainly benefited a lot from the TV series.
It was a bestseller already, so, but yes, definitely.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, as a publisher, I'm sure that there's a great sort of fringe benefit there, and in this sense, probably a TV series has more of that effect.
It does.
Vis-a-vis a film.
Yeah, vis-a-vis a film, it does. And coming back to the point Nicoletta just answered, I think there's a lot to be said for like a diversification of viewpoints and voices and stories. So that's what this is not actually about, but about too. So not just like the influx of US IP or Anglo-American IP to Europe, but also the other way around. And I really hope that this is going to increase even more. And it is something I'm observing actually that yes, European IP is actually something that we can like we can bring to the US. But then again, the US market is really different from the European one. So it's, again, special rules and everything. But yeah, I think that European IP is becoming more and more important, but it also depends on how the strike is going and what the results will be, yeah, but that's definitely something, yeah, I hope for it that European IP is getting more and more important.
I think with regards to the strike, I think it's true. I mean, we can keep on working as long as our writers are not WGA, and this is a huge advantage we have. On the other hand, it's difficult to bring that into a market for let's say a company like Netflix, because what you never have to forget is that a lot of decision making is done from the US, and in the US nobody makes a decision right now. So it's a little bit it's a tricky situation right now from a production perspective. If you want to do a series of feature which is maybe for the local market, but also with an approach for the international market, or even for the US.
Now, in terms of that, it sounds as though the streamers, the US streamers, are the sort of natural outlet or the natural partner for either series or movies based on book IPs. But of course, the market is a bit more diversified, thankfully. So I'm just wondering, in terms of that process, whether you're seeing in Europe, some kind of a shift to where, for example, I'll give you an example. There's a famous alliance of public broadcasters, where you have German public broadcaster, Italian public broadcaster, French public broadcaster, sort of working together. And I believe they usually work with IPs that are known IPs. I'm wondering if you're seeing the emergence of a sort of alternative to the, not just the hybrid where you have the streamer and the public broadcaster, but just different broadcasters who are not non-US, let's put it, or non-streamers, partnering together on co-productions based on IPs, whether you're seeing that.
Yeah, definitely. There is a shift from my perceiving into that territory by territory market model, which we know from feature films and from sales companies who are doing that, and this is coming more and more back. Yeah, I think there was I just saw in the news that Konstantin is doing a big series about the Roman Empire and stuff like that. So it's selling it for all over the territories. Yeah.
Okay, Nicoletta.
Well, I think that we'll be seeing like huge projects, huge international projects for more than one territory, but there will be less of them, like few of them, with high budgets and high optimistic hope of great success. But the most part of the production will be local. And hopefully, if that's a good show, that show will travel. But I think they sense that the main interest of the platform, the streamers, is local. They need to go to have good numbers locally first. So I see like two completely different business model and development thoughts. Like on one hand, we'll have like local product, the best we can, and on the other hand, we'll have few huge projects that hopefully will travel and that will be produced by different territories and will be sold in many countries. This is what I think.
Sema, are you seeing a different kind of model in terms of the people that you're interacting with? Are the streamers still the main kind of liaisons that you have, or are you seeing maybe a slight shift in the sense of what we were talking about before?
As Penguin Random House Germany, we've always been working with public broadcasters. You know, in the GCA region, public broadcasting is a huge thing, and we have like long-standing relationships with them and never stopped working with them, even as the streaming platforms came on and became ever more dominant and omnipresent. We are always happy to have a public broadcaster at our side for our projects, and sometimes, still most of the times, they don't have like a streaming platform co-producing. So that's what we are doing is like just looking for the ideal, for the best partner for the project. If it's a streaming platform, it's a streaming platform. If it's a public broadcaster, it's a public broadcaster. So we don't discriminate, or we try not to discriminate. And speaking about the business side of things, you know, as rights owners, sometimes it's more beneficial thinking about the back end to be working with a public broadcaster, to go into world sales, and to not having to think about a buyout and all rights being taken from you.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of it all. In other words, I've always been a bit fuzzy on the fact of whether, for example, in Germany, it's regulated so that writers are entitled to residuals regardless of who the commissioning or who's paying for the production, or whether instead when it's a Netflix type situation where they take everything, the writer just gets a flat fee. Yeah, I'd be curious to know a little more about that, and maybe we can talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about that vis-a-vis Italy, but. Obviously, because there's a writer's strike going on, I think it could be an interesting question, and then I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience.
As far as I can say for Germany, it's you don't have that system like you have in the US with the residuals. You have collecting agencies, which bring authors revenues later on. And you had that old school deal in the public broadcasters, which was fantastic. That which was one of the biggest invention in Germany. That you get an additional fee when the show is aired again. So that was, but this was mainly the public broadcasters. It will be a long way to fight, and I think from a German perspective, I see it's just at the beginning to even ask for these.
Okay, so it doesn't apply to streamers. Okay. Do you want to say anything about this?
I can just confirm this. So
Okay.
the authors get, public broadcasters residuals for, repetitions, and that's the way it has to be, I think, because no authors, no IP. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's more difficult to gauge from the streamers as well, and this is one of the issues I think that's at the center of the strike. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. Do we have any questions from the audience? No questions? Okay, all right. So, in terms of the sort of dynamics of the market at the moment, well, we've said that IPs are increasingly important. In terms of the rights situation. And the bidding wars. I'm wondering if you could talk to me a little bit, if we could drill down a little bit on that. In other words, for one, I'm curious, is the scouting done year-round, or is it done at book fairs? What are your sources for scouting? Nicoletta, I would like to start from you.
we'll use everything we have. I mean, when in Cattleya there is me, and also we have a well-structured development team, so we are always looking for content everywhere, as I mentioned before. So yes, but it's key right now having a good contacts with agencies, with right holders, also with story ideas from the publishers, and everything you can do to be updated on what is happening is very, very important. And for us, of course, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, but the Italian market is still like the most important for me, is the one I watch the most and I monitor the most, because it's where I can get the most interesting properties for my company. But I try to stay in contact with Spain, with France or Little Germany, because we're not that similar, but worldwide you can find a very good story everywhere, but it's not that easy to adapt to your culture sometimes. So that's the point. And also maybe you find a very interesting, great, compelling story from, I don't know, Belgium, but it hasn't been translated into Italian and no one knows that property here. So it may be very difficult for me to sell that project in terms of, as we said before, as streamers, talent, and whatever. So, yes.
Wolfgang, you have offices in Berlin and Los Angeles, and I think you said also in Switzerland. How does it work? How does it work for you? Do you have somebody who just does that, basically, just does the scouting, or do you all do the scouting? Is it sort of random? Is it systematic? How does it work?
We tried to systematic it more, but we failed, and not totally. We have in the US, thankfully to agency and managements, we have access to sources, which is fantastic. In Europe, we mainly have either personal contacts and we have a scout for who covers a little bit French and Germany to see what's on the market. I mean, it's an old story for Europe. I mean, the languages divide us, but give us big chances on the same side. So in the English-speaking world, it's an enormous competition for what I see in the US, and it's mainly dominated by the studios and by the big players in the world. So the European market is a big chance to get into it. For example, in the German market, to see if there's something which can be successful outside Germany as well, or the French market.
Do you get manuscripts before they get published? How does that work?
We have to.
So you provide those? I mean, I imagine there's a whole technique to that.
Yes, we do. And for me, this is an all-year activity, talking to production companies, and also, book fairs, of course, are like predestined to establish new contacts. But it's really me and the producers, talking sometimes from week to week or month to month, on a monthly basis, about books that are coming out in 1 or 2 years' time, to provide them really early with the relevant material, with manuscripts, and talking about different languages and locations and everything. It's much easier to include different locations all over the world in books. So, on the one page you're in Rome, on the next you're in, I don't know, Dubai, and then again in Germany. So for authors, it's really easy to do this. And one of the topics I'm talking to producers most often is, can this book with these different locations all over the world be transferred to Germany? If it's a German production company, it's a financial thing, but also a creative thing. So that's also something that I have to think about. Not just stories from Germany traveling into the world, but stories that are like set internationally, bringing them back to Germany for a German production company. So that's also, yeah, something interesting.
Okay. And basically, the other question I have for all three of you, like we started out this panel talking about how IPs are more important, and we've gone into quite a bit about that. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground in that sense. But the basic question I have for you, because I think you really have the pulse of this, especially you, is because we're going on the assumption here that people are reading these books. And my impression is that instead, all around the world, this might not necessarily be the case. So in a sense, my impression is that books need movies and television. You know, they need to help each other out. But anyway, basically the question is, I mean, you're relying on IP so much, but I mean, how much is this IP actually getting tested before it goes to the screen? Or how much is readership up, down? How is that going at the moment? We'll start with you.
I mean, for us, it's up actually, and the book industry is doing well, and our books are doing well, and we, you know, it's all also genre specific. So, for example, if you talk about very highbrow literature, like literary fiction, there's always going to be, you know, a lesser readership than for big genre books. But to me, finding the right production company for those kinds of books is sometimes even more rewarding in a way. You know, to have this benefit of opening the book up to a wider audience. But on the other side, like, of course, production companies are also looking for IP and content that already has this built-in readership, built-in audience, to, you know, also, you know, that's beneficial to them, of course. So, you know, it's both sides, but yeah, books are doing well. People are still reading books.
That's reassuring. Okay, that's reassuring. Oh, do we have a question, or do we have a question? Okay.
Hello, I'm Cynthia. I'm from Los Angeles. I just wanted to know your guys' perspective on young actors, producers, and directors who maybe read a book and they don't have any IP, like any rights to the book, and they just read it, they enjoy it, but want to develop it into a film of their own, and if they wanted to do it in the European market as well, either or, whether if they could pitch it to the US or European market, how do they go about that, and how do you guys approach that person who, you know, maybe comes to you with a book that's not theirs, but they want to take it another route? Do they, you know, go to the author or the publisher first? And to me, the first step always has to be to approach the right owners, whether it's the publisher or an agency, and in most of the cases, it's going to be one or the other. And even if the author is the right owner, you would be like forwarded to this person. But really, the most important thing is to always, you know, clear the legals, to make the legal situation clear, so you actually can go forward with a film project. And that's something I actually always talk about young producers too. You know, don't just start with a project, even if you're so on fire that you just want to start writing, want to start producing. Always, you know, make the legal stuff beforehand, and then you're set.
Yes, definitely, because otherwise you risk wasting your time completely. Because maybe while you're writing that project, maybe someone else with the rights is doing the same. And so definitely all the legal side before.
It doesn't sound so sexy, does it?
I was so much in love with so many books. I wanted to adapt or had ideas about bring it to screen, and it's all failed due to the rights situation.
Well, related to that, I'd be curious to know whether there's a sort of standard time window or frame as applies to the options? Like, what are some of the models, let's say, for how an option works?
I mean, for us, it's so every agreement is individual, so that like I want to say that beforehand. But if you want to talk about like a standard option time, it's 12 to 18 months. And after that, we can talk about an extension, as I mentioned in the beginning, and that's something the author is always involved in, and talk about project and everything. But yeah, as a standard, 12 to 18.
Okay. Okay. We have another question over there. Sorry, did you want to say something else?
It's just a little off topic. Do you guys find any authors who want to adapt their books into maybe short films up to 30 minutes, or do you try to shoot for feature and series mostly?
Short film. Actually, hasn't happened yet, I have to say. All of the authors I'm working with or have worked with up until now wanted their work to be developed into a series, a TV show, or film. But what's interesting, adjacent to that, is that more and more like novel authors want to dabble into screenwriting. That's a development that's quite interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, not to mention show running and producing.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question over there.
Hi, I'm Eve, based in Berlin. I'm just wondering what balance you tend to see as to whether the rights are being held by the publishing company or by separate agencies, and from a production side, whether you feel any difference in who you're working with, if it affects your relationship with the author, whether you're working with a publishing company as the rights holder or with a separate agency.
It depends. Sorry. Yeah, it depends how the situation is. I mean, the normal contacting for us is the publishing house, because often you don't know the agent of a writer, or if the writer himself is repping him, and where he lives and what his contact details are. So you often go to via the publisher.
For us, I mean, I know that you're working in an agency in Berlin, so and you also work with lots of our authors. To us as publishers, it's important to have the best possible representation of the film rights possible, basically. And it used to be that agencies did not have individual film rights agents that were taking care of the media rights. So, but now, agencies are more and more taking care of it themselves, and so that's interesting, for us to observe, if we are doing the rights or if they're doing the rights. But sometimes we still have the case that, agencies are keeping the rights, and there is nothing happening, in quotes. And so we approach the agencies and then talk about redistribution of the rights. So that does happen, and but all in all, I can say that we are on very good terms with our agents, and yeah.
If I can add something. In general terms, I wouldn't say that there is a difference between agency and publishing houses, but what I feel that the difference is how well they know the industry. I mean, the two industries are very different, so and they need to know each other very well to have a good contact. So if you're opening an agency, so I hope you know very well this industry, because that will help you so much in having good deals with producers. That helps to share knowledge about the industry.
And connected to that, I'm curious to whether there are more units within markets, within film and television markets, such as this one, that are specifically dedicated to book rights, and whether we're seeing a sort of flourishing of these events, which are, I think, important to connect the publishing industry with the film and TV industry. My impression is that there are more of these types of events, but I'd like to hear from you guys as well, and whether you think it's good or not.
I think it's very good, and I can confirm your observation. So there are more and more like book to film formats at film festivals for the industries to grow even more together and more organically in a way. So we, for example, last year we pitched a title at the Berlinale, at Books at Berlinale. We went to Cannes last year for Shoot the Book. We're here a second year in a row. And so we, yes, we do travel to film festivals, to book to film formats, and most of the big festivals really provide them now. So that's, yeah, really nice.
Okay. So on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much, everybody. I know I learned a lot, so I want to thank our panelists for that. I'm glad to know that people are reading books.